So today I want to welcome Victoria McKenna to the show. Born in the 1980s, she was quite a naughty child, apparently. We may find out a little bit about that. Very artistic and quite sensitive. She never actually knew what she wanted to do in life for a very long time, and not until 2014. And from leaving university, she followed a path into the world of telecoms sales, which was the start of a long and enjoyable career, finishing up as a project manager, which she loved. As a young adult, for years, she dreamt of designing bespoke clothes for women, but didn't have the faith to bring that to fruition. Learned how to power dress in a corporate world and became obsessed with waistcoats. I love a waistcoat as well. And she still is obsessed with it. And she was obsessed with looking serious, but with an edge. In 2014, however, her life changed. And after a period of stress, she had a stroke. And we'll touch on that, I'm sure. And life stopped. She lost a career and took a total of 2 years to properly recover after heart surgery. And if there's ever time to take a long, hard look at yourself, as she says on her bio, it was during that period. So the brand was born. She decided to move into what she dreamed of as a kid. So Victoria, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
A little bit of a butchered intro there, which isn't unusual on this. I'm just trying to find you back on my screen because I'm trying to get the other bits that I was reading on you. So apologies for the talk. So like I say, welcome to the show. And how are you doing?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, good.
So let's start at the beginning, shall we? Where were you born? Where are you from?
Okay, so I was actually born in Aberdeen in Scotland because my dad was in the RAF. So that's why we were up there.
Nice. And where are you living now?
So now I'm in Oswestry in Shropshire, and this is where my family are now.
Brilliant. Obviously. And for those who don't know on the show, this is down the road, and I'm a born bred Oswestrian. And I saw Victoria's post on LinkedIn on something on one of the, I can't remember whose post it was. I think it was Adrian's, wasn't it? I saw that and project manager. There's a candidate for my interview, someone local. Most people I've interviewed have either been thousands of miles away or at least hundreds. So that's cool. That's really good. So you mentioned family and friends. What's the family situation with you?
Well, I actually had a lockdown baby.
Oh, right. Nice.
So, yeah, a little surprise there, and she's 15 months old now. So.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's brilliant. So you're learning, you've got a major project there then.
Yeah. It's taken its toll as well because, I had her when I was 40 as well, which is, shock to the system.
That's a change to lifestyle, a change to life and everything, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wow. So it sounds like you've gone through quite a bit of upheaval in the past few years then from that point of view, and also from 2014 when you changed careers. And I know that now you have the Victoria McKenna label, and you've got the I'm going to get it wrong, Shoppie Designs, Shoppie t-shirts.
Shoppie t-shirts, yeah.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, which it's again a very different change to the project management, but I imagine there's probably quite a few parallels we'll draw in the conversation there. But as I mentioned in reading out your bio there, you you're saying you were born up in Aberdeen. Did you grow up there, or were you traveling around a lot with your dad? And when you did, wherever you did grow up, I just probably answered the question, but what did you want to be?
Well, we obviously lived on quite a few military bases, and we only stayed in the UK.
Oh, right, yeah.
So sort of up and down the country, a lot in the south. And then my dad finally got a job in Shrewsbury.
Right.
As one of his last postings. So we decided to move the family up. So it's a few schools, I'd say 4 or 5 different schools.
Yeah. And so what did you want to be? Was it always a fashion designer, or was there something else?
No, I actually had this thing about being a judge.
Oh, wow.
That was what I really thought I could you know, I thought I can do that.
Yeah.
I really want to be a judge. So that was why I chose law at university. I did complete the law degree. I mean, I completed it, but quite badly. Because my heart wasn't really in it, and it was not what I was good at. So I was always very arty.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make the money, does it? That's what your parents say anyway, you know.
Yeah, and I think also I think it's changing, isn't it, as well? Like in the last, if I'm a bit older than you, I'm not going to say how much, but growing up, artists and musicians and actors and eye fluting things were not things you could make a career out of. That wasn't a proper job, was it? And whereas now, I think it's kind of, I think maybe it's us growing up as leading our kids. It's kind of, you kind of go, well, whilst it's not for me, yeah, if you want to make money as a YouTuber, you can see how you can do it. You can entertain, you can create more. I suppose it's open to more people as well. You can be a creative and sell it yourself. You don't have to go to a gatekeeper who chooses whether you sort of like anoints you as good enough as a creative, whether it be in the fashion industry, whether it be in the music industry or anything. You're in that position nowadays where I think, and I'm glad it's that way, that the gatekeepers are not as in control as they probably used to be.
That's exactly, hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. If you're going to do an art degree, you were going to become a teacher, weren't you? That was the point of it most of the time. That was the you're going to be an art teacher, are you? Because that was the only career that someone there, rather than creating a £160 million NFT art piece that you could do now. It's interesting.
Now, what you can do now is just so impressive. You know, all different angles of, you know, design that you can do, and amazing.
Because just thinking about that, is you like with your t-shirt stuff as well, you could end up doing, and your clothes design, you can embed NFTs in those, and then they'd be unique individual pieces of clothing, wouldn't they, as well?
I know, imagine that.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's like nowadays you'll make a thing, and if it was mass produced, it's mass produced, isn't it? And you think about it, it's like the books, isn't it? Your first edition of a book, someone could buy the first edition of one of your clothes, and no one else would have the first edition.
Yeah.
It adds a lot. I'm don't tell anyone that. I had that idea. I'm sure someone's doing it, but if you do it and you make your millions, buy me a pint at the Stonehouse. That'd be great. So you went along, you did your law degree. You didn't come out with what maybe you was hoping to. I suppose that's one of those things that I know it can really change your outlook on life through that period of going. I know I was about to go into college, and a friend of mine who left school, what was he doing? Oh, he's doing A-level accountancy. And I said, the hell are you doing that for? It's boring. I was doing business studies, came out of there and started working as an accountant straight after that, and that was in a period of 2 years. It was kind of like how you things, and I imagine it's a similar sort of thing. You've gone in, you're going to be a judge, you're looking to be a lawyer, and then you get partway through your studies and realize this isn't what I really am, kind of going against the grain sort of thing.
Yeah, I totally disagreed with a lot of the things that sit within the law. I couldn't get my head around them. You know, it is what it is. It's not always black and white, obviously, but I just didn't agree with some of the things and the processes, and I thought, I can't do this. I can't bring myself to work like that. So I left, and I got a job as a waitress, as you do when you sort of leave education and you're a bit lost. So you just go and get a job locally, don't you? And then I sort of floated into a sales job with the Telecoms network hardware distributor. It was a local one, and it just sort of went from there. And then I worked for one of their suppliers, inadvertently. I left them, worked for a supplier, and then I realised where my strengths really lied, because I was ebbing towards quite technical based job roles. That was what interested me, not sales. I'm terrible on a phone trying to sell something. It's really hard.
It is a hard job, that, yeah.
And people can sniff it a mile off if you're not convincing, or if you don't believe it yourself. You know, you can tell in your voice. So then I thought, I researched what jobs there were in telecoms, because I'd fallen into this career path of routers and DSLAMs and all these man techie things. Even though half the office was female, but and then I found, there's this job called a project manager, and apparently they're really organized, and I think I can do that. So then I sort of put the feelers out to see, who I knew that might be able to give me a hand getting that kind of job. And actually I interviewed for the first one I interviewed for, I got that job.
Brilliant.
No, I had no experience in project management, had no qualifications, no nothing, didn't know what Prince 2 was. I'd be like, who's Prince 2?
I think a lot of us did that when we first heard of it. It took many years for me to realise what the heck that was.
Yeah. But and that's where it just went from there. And I absolutely loved it.
Brilliant. So what?
But sorry, go on.
I was going to say was with getting in that role, because obviously you get. I'm going to say that I've done some work within networks and telecoms myself, and there is a lot of niche knowledge around the equipment, the hardware, the language, and it's very, very. If you look in IT in general, you kind of the software stuff kind of follows similar sort of things, whereas when you start getting into plugging bits of wire in and open up firewalls and all that sort of stuff, and doing all the I forget the name of it now. It's the one where you decide what traffic goes through it, and you have some of it will be voice, some of it will be data, and some of it's whatever, and balancing all that out. That as a project manager, having come from software, that fried my head for a long time, because it was trying to work out what was going on. And I think, and a lot of the time it was, again, a different style of project management, because it's a lot of on-site installation kind of things from what I remember. And it was, as you say, about being organized. If you're organized and understand what you're doing is the key. Understand what the engineers are meant to be doing, I think, is part of it, because you can get bamboozled quite easily, regardless of whether you superstar project manager with all the qualifications in the world. I think that engineering bias and understanding of all the bits of kit and how they stick together, to whatever level, is quite important. And it's probably, maybe that's one of the reasons why they went, yes, we need you, because we knew it by then, didn't you? I suppose.
Well, yes and no. So I knew sort of how a network worked, what you needed for it to physically come together back to the exchange, because we were selling a lot of that equipment, but I didn't know anything about wiring. I mean, we learnt about it, but learning it and then seeing it in its spot in an exchange, and then imagining how that goes out from the exchange out to the street cabs, the street cab to the sites, how many sites there are. And that was a whole eye-opener. And I spent, because I was only in my mid-20s, I was very motivated and had loads of energy. Don't now. I am very motivated, but I don't have a lot of energy.
No, I know that feeling.
So I spent a lot of time going out to site, sitting with the engineers. I even did some of the punching down onto the equipment of the wires, so you're getting the pairs in, and you could just see how complicated it really was, in the sense that if one tiny element didn't make that connection, it impacted other things.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole quality issue, and then people don't start paying the bill, and then, you know, customers not paying, supplier can't pay the engineer has to go back, it's more time on. Oh my God, it was just like, if the times where it was an installation went perfectly were like dream days, but you know, things happen, tires go pop on the motorway, and broadband is so necessary. I mean, back then when I was 25, it was Tiscali and Opal Telecom, which became Carphone Warehouse, so it's that many years ago now. Those were the original big networks on TV, weren't they? And the well-known ones. So and this job that I got, it was for the Opal Telecom rollout, which was Carphone Warehouse, and it was all eyes on, and I was absolutely terrified, but you know, because I was quite cocky and a little bit arrogant, because you know, because of my age.
I was going to say, what
in my 20s, everybody's a little bit arrogant, aren't they? Because you have to be.
You need to be.
I know. So you know, I just thought, well, this is going to be a breeze. Oh my God, it was probably 2 years solid of getting up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, making sure I was at the office bang on 8 o'clock or whatever, and then working till midnight, out on site. Sometimes, you know, getting calls from engineers, being on, you know, we had a rota where the PMs were on call, so you'd have to take calls. They couldn't get into an exchange because they were doing a night job, and they said, oh, it took its toll, really did.
I imagine it would. That length of time being switched on and doing is a lot. That's a lot to do, and it does. The body and the mind can only do that for so long, can it?
Yeah, but it was it was the best experience I could ever have been given, really.
Yeah. So you just said about we talk about the terminology and things like that, and you said about the exchange, the road. Did you say road cabs and punching down wires?
Cabs,
What do those mean? I'm sure there's people sitting there going, "That sounds interesting." What is that? Is it when you say the roadside cabs? Are those things we all see where you have the open reach guy sat by, looking like he's trying to fix something? That's what that is, right? Okay. And when you say punching down the wires, is that the little wires they've got in there and they're poking around doing stuff?
Yeah, and that goes on in the exchange as well.
Yeah.
So that's the BT exchanges. That's where all the big equipment goes.
Yeah. So we get the massive cables that go around the country, and then that, what they call it, the local loop kind of stuff that hooks off the end and things like that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I remember being involved in something when I was working for Oracle, I think it was, and we were working to BT, and it was around the local loop unbundling around that time.
Oh, right. Yes.
So,
well, it was all that.
Yeah.
The LLU.
Yeah. So it was around that time and I can't remember we had some consultants working within BT that were supporting something to do with the local loop unbundling. I just remember all these phrases at the time. I had no clue what they meant. All I knew was I was down in Leavesden where they were filming Harry Potter across the road, so I was told, and I was going, "Oh, that's quite interesting." But that was oh, wow. So that was a lot of high pressure work, and did that carry on through your project management career and things like that? Or was it was it always full on and that kind of projects?
Pretty much, yeah. I did work for a company that sent me to Australia, to Sydney, and I'd only been there a month, I think.
Wow.
A couple of weeks or something, and they said, "Oh, we need you to go to Sydney." And I
Nice.
said, "Where? Where's Sydney?" And they said, "Australia." And I said, "What? What do you mean? I've only just started." Yeah, so I had a stint. I think I worked in Sydney for about a month, and then with that same company I went to South Africa.
Wow.
We had a project out there that was really hard. And then I worked twice for a company that was based in Cardiff and Reigate. So that was the bulk of my career, really.
Cool. So thinking about that, so we kind of know how you got into being a project manager. You kind of said, I want to do that. I found that's what I wanted to do. What would you consider to be the first project that you managed in your head? Is kind of right. That was the first one that I went, hang on, I'm in charge of this. Tell us a little bit about it.
So, well, that was my first job. So that was the Opal Telecom.
Yeah. So I was doing that whole thing you just talked about with the early mornings and the late evenings and all that.
Yes, and I lived in Shropshire at the time, but the company that I worked for was in Swindon, so I lived in a hotel for about 7 months.
Oh, geez.
During the week. And then I was traveling to Warrington a lot.
Right.
For project meetings, so it was full on.
Yeah, that sounds full on. So thinking maybe a bit broader on some of the other projects, the question I normally ask on this is around what the biggest project you managed was, and kind of biggest is where I kind of talk about it as what's most significant, not necessarily in money, in number of people, in, I don't know, whatever, boxes installed or whatever, but what was the one that you think actually that was the beast, that was the one that either you felt that you made the most difference in, or it just was big?
It was probably one of my last projects that I'd worked on. I won't mention any names, but it was for a big council, but it involved a lot of schools, and obviously that's sensitive.
Yeah.
Quite stressful for everyone involved, including, head teachers, and but knowing that things were getting delivered to where they needed to be, and it was connecting schools, and and things like fire and rescue as well came in, on sort of side projects and things like that within the counties. So it was really satisfying, when things completed off, because that is vital.
Yeah.
I'm not saying other networks aren't, but in the grand scheme of things, they use these things every day for learning, for saving lives and things like that. So
make a massive difference to society, isn't it? It's kind of, and I was chatting to someone not long ago, and they kind of realized that what they were doing was in a similar vein. They were doing it with NHS and doing things with the NHS, and it's kind of, it wasn't so much what it was the impact that it could have because of it touching society. And that's the thing, is if you're helping a couple hundred kids, a couple of thousand kids to get a better and more access to education, well, how much more influence can you get? And then if you're helping the fire service and people like that to react quicker and have a better service, well, you're creating lives and saving lives, aren't you? And through your change that you're making there. And that's what sometimes I forget it, and we forget it as project managers, that those changes might be for an industry or for a business, but at the end of the day, there's a member of society that's going to benefit from it, or thousands of members of society. And it's kind of all talk about the fact that we're changing the future, we're making the future when we're doing those sort of things. And that's where it can be. That's where you can draw that mega satisfaction from. Yeah. It's not just get away from looking at the details of it's a bit of software code or it's a bit of hardware being plugged in. It makes massive difference. So thinking about that project or other projects, what was the biggest screw up that you've made when you were in your project management career, and more importantly, I suppose actually I should have asked that on the other one. The other project is what you learned from it. So you've got a wry smile there across your face. So I'm guessing it's something you're not sure what to say, or you got something interesting.
Biggest screw ups. It's got to be something like, I don't know, forgetting to, I can only think of really maybe what a couple of occasions that it happened, but maybe forgetting to order a piece of equipment. That obviously is a vital, you know, thing.
What did you?
You know, these things are always overcome, and
yeah,
you just have to get it sorted. I mean, there are countless times where I can think I've made mistakes.
Yeah.
But as soon as you realise you've made a mistake, you go into that hot sweat and you think, oh my God, I've really got to fix this now because nobody's going to save me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's that one where you kind of, with those scenarios, you've got to go, most of the time you're going to put your hands up and go, I've messed up.
I learned that.
Yeah. Because if you try and hide something like that or bullshit it, you get caught out, don't you?
You always get found out. Yeah. I learned that through experience. Just always just come clean straight away as soon as you know, even if it's 6 a.m. in the morning and you've just woken up and realised what you've done, just send the email, you know, quickly, just send it on your phone, send it to the customer and say, I've just read, you know, and then it's bad, but it's never as bad as, you know.
Yeah, I think the thing is most people recognise that we're all fallible. We all make mistakes, and actually, to be frank, if you're dealing with someone who doesn't recognise you've made a mistake, you've made an error, you try and fix it, and if they can't accept that or treat you in any different way, well, actually, you probably don't want them as a customer or as a manager, do you? You kind of you're in the wrong place in those scenarios because not everyone's perfect. I mean, I've got. When you look in the project management arena these days around the agile thing, around failing fast and learning quickly, and that's you've got to allow people. And I was reading something, must have been yesterday. There's a diagram of psychological safety and psychological threat or something like. I can't remember what the other one was. And that whole point of this starts at the fact of being able to make a mistake without reprimand, without being battered or whatever. I can't remember what it said, but then there was a sort of a feedback loop that kind of said, if you've made a mistake, and then you look at lessons learned, then you make your changes, then that encourages innovation, but then you get more mistakes. But it's a positive circle of getting there. Go, you do something, you mess it up. It's a feedback loop, and keep that feedback loop going. But what happens is if people get battered and not allowed to learn and not forgiven for making that mistake, obviously if someone does the same mistake over and over and over again, well, either they're in the wrong role or there's some more, or the education's not right. But that ability to fail, fix that failure, learn from that failure, fix that failure, and use that as part of that cycle. If you stop it, well, people stop taking risks. And if you stop taking risks, you stop doing innovation. If you stop innovating, your business dies.
Yeah.
And I think, and that's where, it's learning from screw ups and confessing to screw ups is so important. So obviously let's swap that around to a little bit more positive now on something. Now, there's a couple of lines I've got on mine. I kind of combine them now because quite often, and maybe it's the last conversation. It's around what your proudest project delivery was and what your proudest project achievement that wasn't necessarily about the delivery itself, and thinking about your projects and how you dealt with those.
So my proudest project delivery.
Yeah. Which one you thought, I did well on that. I was brilliant. And maybe on the other side of it is maybe, or as I say, something that you said, right, I'm that whole something within that was proud, whether it was coaching someone, solving a problem, or the end result, as we talked about with the schools or something like that, which what made you just stand there and think, yeah, I'm proud of myself?
Probably back to one of my earliest ones, really. So the Tiscali network, after I'd pretty much completed the Opal Telecom one, they sort of moved me sideways onto the Tiscali one because it'd been such a long running project. I know they'd had a few project managers along the way, and people leave if they're on contracts. So I remember getting involved with that, and I didn't finish it by any means because it was such a it went on and
Huge,
on. But picking that up, and I think I did a really good job tidying up some messes, and I don't know if that's because there's been so many people involved that things like just the documentation was messy and things were not in order, and I just went in and I tidied it up, and I got great pleasure from doing that. And it's just not some people's bag, is it? But I was so proud of that.
I can understand that. I know being able to look at something that is not organized, not coordinated, and not in a structured manner, and I've been in similar situations, because it's kind of the basics of a project. Having a project that is I think I talk about is around projects not feeling as if they've got a rhythm to them. It's all zooming back to this different, rather it should be just kind of something regular about it, knowing that you're hitting the mark and hitting the beat all the way through it. And sometimes it is about that organization, because I'm putting structure in the governance and the basics. And I'm not someone who thinks that we should have thousands and thousands of pages of governance documentation. I firmly believe people deliver projects, not process. But there's there's a minimum you need there, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, and it's almost like common sense, a lot of it. But it's obviously the things like the methodologies do teach you sort of how to hone in that common sense.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that if you sit back and read through the methodology of going, right, okay, so what are you going to do on a project? Oh, well, we're going to start it. Right. We're going to have a way of starting. You think, well, of course you would. You talk to all the people, you work out what you need. Well, of course you would. And you break it down into, take all the jargon out, throw that, all the different jargons that we get in there, and talk about what you're going to do. It's kind of, well, we're going to work out what we're going to do. Well, we probably need to know why we're going to do it. We're going to work out who needs to do it, and we work out when we're going to get it done by. And then we're going to measure how we're doing against all those things, and then we look at things that might stop us. It's actually really quite conceptually, it's very simple, and there is a lot. But we do complicate it a lot. But if you, but sometimes it's by everyone in an industry. You understand the jargon, you learn it, and it becomes default. And actually, you're still doing that same thinking, that simple thinking, but with the different tools to do them. And then the tools become the focus, not the thinking and the thought processes. And it just kind of, I don't know, it just kind of, we get tied up in whether it should be this form or that bloody form, and it doesn't matter. It's a risk. Does it matter whether we've mitigated, whether we've done it? Well, it doesn't really matter. Is it going to stop the project? No. Right. Okay, good. Let's move on. Is it going to stop the project? Yes. Right. Let's do something about it. It doesn't really matter on some of the classifying it as a certain people, process, or whatever. Just sometimes bringing it up that level makes life a lot easier, I think, especially for people who aren't project managers. And for the majority of the time on a project, there aren't many project managers, is there? We're in a minority. So using our language and our terminology doesn't necessarily help the people delivering it. Yeah, it kind of alienates people sometimes as well, I think, is kind of you going, and it's how you get that across and get people to contribute. So just thinking there, you've got your project and I mentioned earlier on the fact that obviously 2014, that major life change. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and kind of then kind of how we moved the rest of your story on into what you're doing now?
Okay, so what I can say about the stroke, basically, I attribute it to putting my body through very little sleep, looking after it very poorly for 10 years. And that career did, as much as I loved that career, it did take its toll on my body. And also I was involved, my very last project, I was involved with it. There was an individual who had a reputation for being unpleasant, but this person made my life a living hell, day in, day out, I would say, for 6 months. And that was the tipping point for me, and I couldn't take it anymore. And I started not being able to cope. Whereas I'd been this, strong woman. Oh, I'm going to fight every day to, get things done. And I loved that. Suddenly something snapped, and it became horrific. And I don't know what was, the straw that broke the camel's back, but I know this particular project really pushed me over the edge. And
I know how you feel.
And then I, on top, I was organising my wedding. I got married. We went on the honeymoon. And I think 2 weeks off, or a week after the honeymoon, I can't even remember, 1 or 2 weeks after, I just had a stroke. That was it.
Yeah.
Game over. Because of all the, I'd been suffering from migraines every single weekend. I was taking the pill and whatever, and you combine those two, it's terrible anyway. But there were all sorts of little warning signs that I just arrogantly ignored, which I could have done something about it, but sadly that was the end of that career, just like that. And I had to, I can't remember if I even I don't think I rang my line manager at the time. I was a contractor. But I literally emailed and said, I'm not coming back from the hospital bed. Just like that, it was done. And I thought, God, I've actually I've pushed myself too far this time.
It sounds, and you're a little bit, I think you're a little bit hard. I don't know the situation, but you sound a little bit harsh on yourself there. And
it's frustrating.
But I think the thing is, when you look back on things, I have been through last year, I was off for 5 months with stress. And through some of the conversations and some of the counseling there, I kind of realized I kind of was holding as well as the situation, not the same and not as extreme. But I was in something high pressure, a lot of stress. I wasn't, and with blasted COVID on there as well, which didn't help with the stress levels for any of us really. I just found myself unable to function as a project manager. That, I think you said about this capable woman who's been able to deal with anything, and I imagine that that capable person was able to juggle 150 things all in one go, be able to make sure lots going on, understand that, be able to at the top drop of a hat react and change. And then I don't know if it was the same for you, but suddenly I found I couldn't manage multiple things at the same time. And not at the same time, but you know what I mean? I had a lot of things going on. I was able to deal with those and context switch really quickly. but I found that difficult. And then when I was focusing on specific things, I just couldn't focus, and like focus gradually got worse and worse and worse. And similar sort of thing. You see, you're nodding there, and it's one of those things you sit there and you think, well, that's not me. Hang on, I can deal with this. What's going on? And that I found that really scary at that time. And was that a similar sort of experience that you had?
Yeah. I mean, I think I have no doubt I would still be a project manager now. I mean, I'm not saying it's a terrible career to get into or anything, but if I had given myself
a break,
and had taken holidays, because I never did, because I was a contractor.
Yeah.
And I just had this mindset that I'm contractor, right? That means I can never take a break.
Yeah.
Because if I take a break, I don't get paid. But there's more to life than working every single day of life. But yeah, and I think finding the coping mechanisms as well. So if you do start to feel like it's just all becoming so overwhelming, then it is time to, I don't know, go and get a therapist or just anything.
Do you know what? I agree. Last year, I as part of my recovery, I had therapy, and from a stress point of view, and I've said it on the show before, it's anyone that is feeling stressed. I think the difficulty is knowing that you need that help. I was stood outside my office door here. I couldn't come into this office because I was scared of the next email that was coming in. I still get quite emotional now when I talk about it. I try to talk about it as much as I can, to be honest. And I think that I'd lost my train of thought there, but it was the therapy side of it, because of where I'm working, really good access, and I got access to it. And the conversations I had with my therapist, and it was kind of a little bit where I was leading to before, was around that I was holding myself up to a standard and to a level of performance in both work and all manner of bits of life, and it's gone back over years, that perhaps I didn't need to, perhaps I shouldn't do. And I think we do that as project managers. We are in a lonely place quite often, in that you're there, and whilst your manager will empathize with you, they're removed from what's really going on. They just want their outputs. The team, if you're doing the job right, you're subservient to the team. You're there to support them. You're there to help them get what they've got to get done. Yeah. And you end up giving away you to those two groups of people. And because you think, well, they need me and they need me, and I'm that linchpin in the middle. And sometimes you've got to give yourself a break, haven't you? And I think it's not just in project. I think in all walks of life, sometimes we can hold ourselves up as being a superhero, and I don't claim to be one, but you more robust than because we're all fragile at the end of the day. And there will, as you say, there's the straw that broke the camel back. There's something that eventually that emotional well just overflows, and then bang, your body starts going into protection mode, shutdown mode, and does what it does to try and protect you in all manner of different ways. And it's a scary time. I imagine that time for you as well. Obviously, you said it took you 2 years of recuperation in your thing. How did that go? Was it? How did that happen? How did you deal with that? I don't know the words to use.
Yeah, I know, it's a bit of a weird one. Well, I suppose it didn't feel very real actually to begin with, but then I didn't really deal with it very well. I was quite upset because I lost all my colleagues who, some of those were friends, because I was spending so much time with these people.
Yeah.
That was my life, and I had gotten married, although that marriage did come to an end quite quickly after the stroke, which these things happen. But I ended up, I'd married someone in the RAF, so I ended up, when he was away on tour, in this house on my own, thinking, what am I going to do? Because I couldn't do a lot of things. I mean, I was functioning. I didn't, my face is fine. You can see. I still have pins and needles in one side. But at that point, things were a struggle. Like making a cup of tea took real focus. For quite some time. So I knew that I couldn't just go out and get a job. I couldn't even be a project support. I was just not capable of doing spreadsheets or anything. So then I sort of sat down one day, and I'd managed to save a lot of money whilst being a PM. And so I had all these savings, and I thought, right, well, I don't really see what else I can do now, so I might as well just do anything. So I thought, right, I'm just going to start a fashion brand. So I just basically started from the bottom, looking at business accounts and how it all worked. And I basically had to do all this research. And obviously with my then husband away so much, I just spent a lot of time doing that and made the decision. And it came together very, very slowly, though. It took a lot of research, like how do you set up a company on Companies House? It was like that basic kind of, right, I have to learn to do everything again. But I used it as just an opportunity to follow my pipe dream, as it were. I thought, right, well, maybe that's why my body stopped me, because that actually wasn't with going with what my heart wants, or however you want to phrase it.
I get that. It's that things happen, whether you believe in fate, whether a higher power or something like that. Actually, it doesn't really matter one way or the other. It's making, and I think you said something similar to this about is making something of what is happening. And it's kind of, as you say, you've gone there and gone, right, okay, so this is the situation. What am I going to do in this situation? And you know what I mean? You've if I remember right, award-winning designs and stuff like that you've had, and you kind of go, well, yeah, it may have not been the grand plan. It may not have been the preferred at the time, but actually, it sounds like it's going in the right direction from what I've seen looking on the outside. And it is one of those things where you can just go, right, okay, all right, that's great. And a bit of the learning as well, where with the screw ups, when you learned from your screw ups to actually place the orders this time, those adversities help us learn something and change something and adapt to something. And that's the point again, as long as you learn from it, you can do something with it, can't you?
Yeah.
So tell us about that journey then, about did you run it as a project? Did you put a project plan together about setting up your business and all that? And how did your PM skills come into play in that? And because I'm sure there will be elements of them that did, or you'll be like the typical, in quotes, mechanic, like my brother, the old thing, or the mechanic whose car's always breaking down, or the accountant who's got no money. Are you the PM who never uses any PM skills?
Well, I don't know if I should be embarrassed, but I did actually get all my PM stuff out, and I made a project timeline and all sorts.
Good.
I remember looking at it going, that's it, that's where I'm going to be, and that never happened.
But it doesn't matter, does it? Doesn't matter. This is the thing I bang on about. Is about. I was chatting to someone earlier about project management is a life skill. Yeah, it's not just for managing projects. It's for managing change, managing something different, and we all do that all the time in our lives. Whether it be a recipe is a project plan. When you're cooking something. Yeah, you've got your requirements, which is the picture at the end. You've got your your resources that are there, that's in there, and then you've got a plan on what to do, and it tells you when to do it and what the timeline is, and you could turn that into a Gantt chart. So I rant on about this a little bit. I think I'm glad that, because, and maybe it's just me because I use my tools at home as well and get heads shaken by my teenagers of what the heck I'm doing. And then I was quite pleased the other week where she was come home from school, she'd written something on her hand and she was doing something on her phone. So get off the phone, you having tea. I'm just writing this down. Oh, right, what are you doing? I'm just writing into my Trello board. She's I've convinced her that it's really good that she's using for planning ideas for books and stories and stuff. So it's kind of like, yes, my work is done here. I've instilled some project management skills of work out what you can do, break it down. So I bet you've still got that Gantt chart as well, haven't you?
Yeah, it'll be somewhere. It's tucked away though. I don't think I can bring myself to look at it.
So how long's the brand been going now then? How's long the business?
So the original fashion brand. Mm-hmm. So I launched the first collection in 2018. Right. So it took about 1.5 years to get from designs on paper to actual products.
Yeah. Okay.
And then just before lockdown, this is by pure chance, I just decided to launch some activewear, sportswear. Yeah. And that obviously really took off during lockdown, which was a saving grace for me, because my original collections are silk blouses, and they're not needed in lockdown, are they? Let's face it.
No, that's not the going out and wearing something like that isn't what anyone was doing. It's, as you say, it's more comfort and exercise stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. So after that, when things started reopening up again, sales just fell off a cliff, mainly because everyone had been buying all these clothes and all these gadgets and whatnot during lockdown, having a whale of a time.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they've got all this stuff that they actually need to use and they don't need any more. So that's what's happened with retail, basically.
Yeah.
And so because I actually taught myself how to add branding to my own activewear.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't, because I just wanted to do it myself. I still have that control thing.
Well, sometimes if you can understand how you can do it, when someone else is doing it for you, you understand the process, and then you understand how good it can be, or what they're doing wrong or whatever. So you can do that. And I can imagine, I know that my brother's done some stuff with the I'm not sure if it's the same sort of thing, with t-shirts and things like that. And he's learned a lot of lessons when he was doing it. And there's certain things that work, and certain things that cause other things to happen. And
but that's how the Shoppie t-shirts was born, really, because I realized I wasn't really going to sell much activewear for quite a time, and I thought, gosh, well, what can I do? I know, let's just do this for a laugh. Shoppie t-shirts, that's funny. I think I came up with that before bed one night, something like that. And then it allows me to create things and make stuff. I like making. And then I've been having a lot of orders from businesses for logo printing and things like that. And it's just it's gone in all different directions now, which is great fun. So
brilliant. So it's obviously it's that a real example of, for me anyway, from a project manager, I put my project management hat on, of you've taken that project, the fashion wear, and then you've got hit by something, an issue, a risk, and you've changed direction again. And then it comes to the end of that, and you've replanned and you've changed direction again. And it's kind of that mind of great, how do we solve the problem? How do we get to the next step? Not that mind of a kind of, oh, we're doomed here. And it's what a project manager needs, isn't it? And it's those skills and basic things of we've got a problem, how do we solve it? How many times do you drag everyone together on the phone call? You're just saying a flat tire on the way to somewhere, or I know a digger sticks a cable, a back actor through a cable under the ground or whatever, which I know these things happen with when you're doing network type stuff, or they drill, or drill a hole through the wrong wall that you've got landlord permissions to do, and actually find out you've got to do it through the other wall, and that wall is a different landlord or whatever, and things, all those sort of crazy things. But you work out, and that's where you learn those things, to swap and twist around to do stuff at the moment. And it's kind of that I can see how you're doing that in your new business and as an entrepreneur.
And it's really a bit like that, but I suppose it is.
Yeah, and I think that the whole entrepreneurial take up again, don't know, it's kind of if you're an entrepreneur and you are not someone who manages your projects and has that adaptability, then you're not going to succeed very well, I don't think. And it's that adaptability and that make a plan, as you say, in 2028, I bet you'll lift out that Gantt chart and you're going to have a look at it and just have a look and see what it's like. I would 10 years and see what. But how many business plans do you get from the top industries, the top people in their industry, and if they bring out their latest, the next 10-year plan that they produce to the stock exchange, I bet they don't look at it 10 years later, and I bet it doesn't look anything like what they've written down. But you've got to have that direction of travel, haven't you, to be able to decide whether you do change left and right. And that's why business plans exist, which are basically project plans. So everything is a project plan in my head. So
I think they are, I agree.
Yeah. Your business plan, you look at that, you go, well, that's a business case for my business. It's a business case. It's the same as you'd have for a project plan. It's a project initiation document, whatever you want to call it. It's the same bleeding thing. Why do we want to do something? What do we want to do? How are we going to do it? Who's going to do it? And when we're going to do it by? And how much it's going to cost? But that's all part of what we're going to need to do it.
Yeah.
So where next for you then? So what the next? Well, let's say by 2028. What's happening with you with the Victoria J McKenna brand and with the Shoppie t-shirts? What's the plan?
Well, obviously have the little addition.
Yeah.
So she's changed quite a few things. Obviously takes, she's my priority. My partner works 5 days a week. So I'm with her 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
During the day, and then I do any work in the evenings, really. But I'm also editor of a local magazine.
Yeah, I saw that. It's Osprey Life, isn't it?
Yeah, Osprey Life, and it's beautiful Shropshire. So that's something else that I do, and some copywriting for other businesses on the side. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. I think it's just
see what happens.
Changing. Yeah. The brand, I'm really proud of the brand, and I don't want to let it go.
You should be. Yeah, well, it's kind of one of those things when saw it and I went on there, I'm like, this is excellent, and as you say, you can. I'm sure that the demand for silk and going out clothes and things like that is going to lift up, isn't it, over the next 12-18 months, as people get confident that actually, yes, we are out of this damn thing. Because I still think there is that little bit of a, are we out? Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're seeing more people out, as Mickey Flanagan would say. And that's it, isn't it? It's more, and I don't know what your kind of customers were and what sort of area, but again, if it's customers who are buying stuff for work and being in offices and things like that, there's more coming back together in offices than there was before. It's like with me, it's very rare that I'm outside of a t-shirt and a pair of shorts most of the time nowadays, whereas I used to be in a pair of chinos and a shirt and a jumper, and you know what I mean? It's kind of, now it's if unless it's really cold, it's nearly always shorts and flip-flops. It's kind of that's going to change again, isn't it? And I suppose your demand will come up again. So
Yeah, I think I'm just going to have to see, because the silk blouses were sort of occasion wear, so it needs some work, I think, now I mean, people's priorities have definitely shifted. And I don't really know if they'll come back to how it used to be. So
heels is the one that I've been talking to people about, and that seemed to be a least popular thing. Because
what's that, sorry?
Heels, high heels.
Right.
Most people I've talked to have kind of gone, actually, they're really uncomfortable, which everyone knows they are, and people have got used to not wearing them, and therefore don't wear them. It seems to be a couple of conversations I've had. Maybe that's not true. Maybe it is. But I think little things like that, there are people say, I'm never wearing heels again. I've had say to me. So that's quite interesting in that. I know nothing about fashion, as you can tell by my dress sense. But so thank you so much for being on the show. I've got a load of questions that I would normally ask people, and at the end, a couple of them not as relevant to you, I think, but a couple of them around for people who've been in it as a PM and managed projects. They're seasoned, they know what they've been around the block a few times. From your experience, what tip would you give them? What top tip would you say at that point that they should think about in their project, or what they're doing now and what they might change?
For people that are already
know what they're doing.
Gosh. I guess it would have to be around, your mental health. Really, I think it's so important. It's such a demanding job role that I completely underestimated it when I went in for that. But really, to perform at that higher pace, producing that amount of work, which I imagine it's pretty much the same across industries. I can't imagine it would be any different. You really should, I think, take time to look after yourself and take holidays.
I think that's fantastic advice.
So important. And I wish I had.
I that holiday point when you said it before is something that I know when I've got contractors, I understand the resistance to want to take it, because you don't know when, because you're on a couple of weeks notice that contract could finish bang like that, and you're always worried about that scenario, and then how long to the next one. I'll take my holiday during that period, but my view is that I prefer to have fresh people on my projects rather than tired people on my projects, and it is incumbent on us as people who are leaders, when we've got people who aren't taking a leave, to actually spot that and say it's people. So I think it is something that we should insist that people do take time to break. But and if people are ill, the same scenario, because it's something I always say to people: if they're poorly, I'm going, right, I don't want to see you until you're well. I don't want you, and that's only, it's absolute selfish, because I don't want you half efficient for 6 weeks when I can lose you for a week and then have you back full for 5 weeks. It's all selfish. I don't care about you. That's what I tell them anyway. But it is about that, and being and mental health is the same situation. And I think obviously from the timing of when you said that was now, 8 years on, 9 years on, whatever, the awareness and self-awareness of mental health is way above what it was back then. I wouldn't have even imagined having the conversation about me having mental health problems back then, even in the supportive environment I was working in. So I think it through lessons learned, and through the more we talk about it as a society, and any of us who've gone through it, the more we talk to people about it, the better, because then it helps everyone remove the stigma and helps everyone talk about, I'm having a down day today. Right, that's good. We know you're having a down day. The same as if you would, no different to if someone turns around and says, oh, I'm full of cold. But they're the same thing. but the one can actually be a lot more problematic than if I'm full of cold.
Yeah.
So I think that's a fantastic piece of advice you've given there. So final question, honest, and I'll let you get on with your evening then. Thinking about you on that first day with your first project, you've gone back in a time machine, whether it's in a TARDIS or some kind of thing on Umbrella Academy or some other sci-fi movie where we have time travel, and what's the one thing you would tell you on that day?
Yeah. I would tell myself to question everything, because I didn't.
Yeah, great.
And I accepted everything. Which,
I know that feeling. Yeah.
Didn't necessarily get me, the best deal, I don't think, but there we go.
Yeah, that's a really good piece of advice. It's just that just a couple of weeks ago I was talking to someone about the use of the word why, and that's the power of that 4-year-old's word in projects. Is when you're trying to work out why you're doing a project, kind of, well, why are we doing this? Why are we doing it that way? Why do they want that? It's amazing how if you ask that why enough times, suddenly you go, we're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
We're going the wrong direction. It's the wrong timing, because you've got to dig down to that why, haven't you? Well, that's brilliant. Victoria, thank you very much for coming on the show. I hope you've enjoyed yourself.
Yeah, thank you.
Good. If people want to get hold of you, find out more, grab hold of some of your stuff, what's the best way to get in touch?
That will be via LinkedIn.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And you Victoria Jane on there, or are you Victoria? You Victoria McKenna on there.
Victoria McKenna, yeah. I was just double checking myself.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, profile.
That's it. You only ever click on view my profile if you want to check something, and you don't search for yourself, do you? Yeah, we're all the same. I suppose that's it. Thank you very much for your time and giving me so much time on this, and such an interesting and I know quite difficult conversation at times through that, I imagine. But I'm sure that all my listeners are going to find some inspiration, some thoughts, and some advice and understanding about where they are maybe in that kind of journey. So I really appreciate you being so open and just open in the conversation. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a fantastic rest of your evening.
Thanks.
Cheers now.